interesting combination of HPTI traits is the combinations of adjustment and competitiveness. So when someone has high adjustment, they're more resilient to stress, more resilient to emotional reactions, and tend to be less susceptible to those levels of stress. Whereas people with lower adjustment tend to be a bit more susceptible, a bit more vulnerable to stress, and tend to be a bit more reactive to stress. Competitiveness, though, is really about high desire to win, to be seen as the winner, and to achieve things and be seen as kind of the highest performer or the highest achiever. So people with really high competitiveness levels and really high adjustment levels tend to have that drive to succeed and to get that kind of clear signs of success and display it, but also tend to be more relaxed about it. So they're not as kind of type A personalities. So it's really interesting to see how people with different personality traits deal with failure as well. So when you have people with really, really high competitiveness, but really low levels of adjustment, that's something to look out for, because when someone really feels the need to succeed but they don't get that success or they don't get that recognition, if they have really low adjustment, their stress is likely to be a lot more noticeable and palpable, and a lot of people around them are probably going to experience some of the stress that they're giving off from not getting what their competitiveness drive is kind of pushing them towards. So it's interesting to look at those combinations of traits given how focused people are on competitiveness and what their reaction to that, what their stress response is to when they win or lose. So the opposite combination, when you look at someone who has low competitiveness, someone who's very collaborative, easy to work with, doesn't need the spotlight or like the spotlight sometimes, but very high adjustment, sometimes those are the easiest people to work with, because they don't need to be seen as the highest achiever. They're not going to steal the spotlight. They're not necessarily looking for praise, but they are also quite relaxed about that approach. So they're not worrying about it. They're not worrying about the fact that, they're not getting the awards or they're not always coming out on top. They like to be in a more collaborative team environment and aren't so emotionally reactive. Whereas when you see people who are low on both competitiveness and adjustment, that's an interesting one too, because they may be a little more anxious about things, they may get a bit more worried, concerned, but they're also not putting that kind of worry and concern into trying to get the spotlight, trying to achieve everything, trying to achieve more than other people. So it's really important to look at those combinations when you're looking at how people deal with success and failure, which I've talked about in other videos, and seeing what their reaction will be. So people's adjustment level gives you a good indication of how they're going to react to success and failure and how stressful it's going to be for them. So one of the most common combinations, one of the kind of stereotypes of personality is that type A personality you see, where someone is very, very achievement oriented, has high competitiveness, but also quite neurotic and anxious about it. So they're constantly stressed, and that stress is driving them. So some people use that stress really effectively to focus on goals, to focus on achievements, and can use it and channel it productively, but it's not always the case. And sometimes those are the people that struggle the most with failure or even being seen to fail, because it's really, really stressful for them.